You can steal a painting, an antique, even a wall. And sure, you'd be angry. But when someone steals the memories of an entire lifetime, you're not just angry anymore, you're furious. My name is Lisa Thompson. I live in Silver Creek Hills, the model neighborhood, where fences must be regulation beige, flowers have to be HOA-approved species, and Christmas lights must be taken down before January 10th, or else you'll be fined $75 a day. Here, the HOA, the Homeowners Association, is God. And the residents? Just sheep, living under the shadow of rules cooked up in stuffy boardrooms with closed doors and colder hearts? I got used to the pettiness. The side eyes because my mailbox tilted an inch too far. I used to laugh it off. I used to let it go. But that day? They crossed the line. And I wasn't nice Lisa Gay anymore. It was a Tuesday morning, just another normal day. I was making coffee, sunlight spilling gently through the window. My 8-year-old son, Noah, was munching cereal while I mentally sorted through client meetings. Then he tilted his head and asked, "Mom, is someone cutting wood in our backyard?" I heard this RRR crack, boom sound. I froze. Coffee spilled on the counter. My heart pounded. Something was wrong. I ran to the window barefoot, nearly slipping. And my world shattered. The tree. The 100-year-old oak tree, tall, mighty, its roots buried deep in our family's history, was being butchered. A giant orange loader sat in the yard. 2 men in safety vests held chainsaws, tearing through the trunk like it was nothing but a hunk of firewood. I screamed. "Stop! What the hell are you doing?" I bolted outside. One bald guy turned, cool as ice, and pointed to a sheet of paper taped to the back fence. "Directive from the HOA," he said. Tree was deemed a health and aesthetic risk. We were hired to remove it. What? I yanked the paper down. A flimsy, pixelated notice with cold black letters. A cleanup notification: the tree located at Lot 1124B has been determined incompatible with community landscape standards and will be removed per HOA board decision. Homeowner presence not required. Not required? I turned to him, livid. Are you kidding? This is MY land. My tree. Who gave you permission? He shrugged. Unbothered. I take it up with the HOA, ma'am. Our job is to cut, interfere, and we'll have to call the cops. The cops? For defending my property? I stood there, helpless, like a mother watching her child ripped apart, unable to do a damn thing. Noah's treehouse, the one we built just last summer, painted green, strung with little paper lanterns, was being torn down like trash. I don't know when I started crying. Only that it wouldn't stop. Noah stood behind me, silent, eyes wide. Then he turned and ran inside, slamming his door shut. No yelling. No tears. Just gone. That tree wasn't just a tree. It was planted by my grandfather in 1952 when he first bought this house. It was where my mom used to read books in a hammock every summer. Where I had my 7th birthday with blue balloons and chocolate cake. Where Noah first said, "Mom, can we build a treehouse?" And now it was gone. Executed, in broad daylight, on private property, by a group of people who thought their title gave them the right to erase generations of memory. That night, I sat at the kitchen table. Didn't eat. Didn't speak. Just stared at the HOA notice. That cold, soulless piece of paper that felt more brutal than a death sentence. Then I heard footsteps. Noah came over, holding a broken piece of the treehouse railing. "Mom, is the tree dead?" I nodded. Couldn't say a word. "Does it hurt?" My knuckles turned white on the edge of the table. Yes. Just like I'm hurting now. The next morning, I found an envelope in the mailbox. No name. No apology. Just this. Dear Ms. Thompson, thank you for your understanding regarding the necessary action taken in the interest of community harmony. The HOA regrets any inconvenience. We are prepared to reimburse up to 30% of tree replanting costs if completed within 60 days. Approved tree list enclosed. Sincerely, Raymond Geller, HOA President. 30%? For a tree they chopped without permission? My grandfather's tree? The tree that kept my son up all night crying? Don't call that compensation. Don't call that understanding. That's a slap in the face. That's an insult to memory. A violation of ownership. That's war. I picked up my phone. Called a lawyer. Called the Department of Environmental Protection. Called every contact I had since college. I couldn't replant the tree. But I could replant justice. And this time, it would grow roots deeper than any HOA had ever seen. You know what scares a system that thinks it's untouchable? A woman who's been silent and then starts moving. And I'd been silent for far too long. After the tree was taken down, I didn't scream anymore. I didn't cry. I rebuilt my world in a way the HOA never saw coming, with documents, with laws, with evidence, and with a fury that had sunk deep into the marrow of my bones. That same evening, I pulled out every document I had, property deeds, land surveys, and that dusty HOA rulebook I never thought I'd read closely. I flipped to section 5.3, buried between some absurd rules about a canopy proportion and leaf density. Any action affecting property located entirely within private boundaries, including trees, architectural features, or natural landscape elements, must receive written and express consent from the property owner. No consent. No signature. No proper notice. Just a shady printout slapped on my fence the same morning they arrived with saws. What did that mean? It meant they didn't just break HOA bylaws, they broke state law. I called Rachel, an old college friend turned real estate and environmental attorney. I sent her photos, scanned documents, and even the footage from my backyard security cam. Thank God it still worked. She went silent. Then she asked, "Lisa, do you realize that oak may qualify as a protected ecological heritage tree?" I blinked. A what? If it's native, over 100 years old, and not posing a danger, it's protected under state environmental law. Cutting it without a permit is a crime. That was the moment my grief turned into strategy. I didn't want just compensation. I wanted every HOA member to flinch every time they saw a green leaf. I posted on the Silver Creek Neighborhood Forum. My heritage tree was cut down by the HOA without permission. Who's next? They didn't call. They didn't email. They didn't knock. They sent workers to destroy a century-old oak my family's loved for 3 generations. If they can do this to me, they can do it to anyone, your roses, your citrus trees, your backyard garden. How much longer are we going to let this unchecked power run our lives? Within hours, 214 likes, 78 comments, and 3 follow-up posts. One neighbor uploaded a picture of her peach tree, half pruned by someone without warning. The rage? It spread faster than any HOA memo ever had. I remember when Raymond Geller moved in 4 years ago. Perfectly ironed polos, plastic smile, and a wife who always said, "We just want what's best for the community." The truth? He used the HOA to serve his personal agenda. And my tree? It blocked the view of the lake from his second-story balcony. That little fact came from Clara, a 72-year-old neighbor who attended every HOA meeting until she was politely asked to stop speaking up. Raymond hated that tree from the start, she told me. He said it was an eyesore blocking the lake aesthetic. No one thought he'd actually do something about it. He thought I'd stay quiet. He thought wrong. By Friday, I sent the HOA a formal demand. $18,400 in compensation, covering environmental restoration, tree replacement of equivalent size, and emotional damages. A written admission from the HOA acknowledging that tree removal violated HOA regulations. 7 business days to respond. I CC'd every resident on the email list and sent a copy to a local urban development reporter. The HOA stayed silent. But the neighborhood? Loud and united. That evening, I found Noah sitting quietly near the old tree stump, sketching on a scrap of wood from the ruined treehouse. "Mom," he said softly, "can we plant another one?" I pulled him into a hug. "Not just one, sweetheart. We'll plant more. Bigger. Stronger. And this time, no one will ever touch them again." I didn't want revenge. I wanted justice. And if justice wouldn't come on its own, I'd build it myself, branch by branch, root by root, paper by paper, signature by signature. Until they realized. They messed with the wrong woman. At first, they pretended not to care. No reply to the demand letter. No apology. No responsibility. Just a cold one-line email from Raymond Geller, president of the HOA. We are reviewing the situation and will respond accordingly. Reviewing? Reviewing what? Your audacity to cut down a tree on private land without notice? I had given him a chance to do the right thing. He chose to ignore me. So I let the press speak for me. The following Monday, the Creek Observer, our small-town newspaper usually reserved for retirement announcements and bake sale flyers, dropped a front-page story that sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. Headline: Centennial tree cut without consent, HOA overreach or personal vendetta? Right below it, a picture of the oak stump, the shattered treehouse, and me, Lisa Thompson, standing in the wreckage, holding a sign that read, "This is my land. My tree. My memory." And they destroyed it. The article, written by Marcy, a former client I once helped redesign her guest room, was meticulous. She cited state environmental laws, quoted HOA bylaws, included a copy of the shady removal notice, and even interviewed Clara, the same elderly neighbor who remembered Raymond saying the tree ruined his view. Within 48 hours, the HOA's inbox flooded. Several residents CC'd me directly. If they did this to Lisa, what's stopping them from doing it to us? Where's the protection for private property? I got fined for hanging a hammock, but they can chop down a century-old tree without consequence? One single mom wrote, "My son used to play under that tree with Noah. He asked me why adults would destroy something so important. I didn't have an answer, except to say, not all adults are like that." Raymond still didn't respond. But the silence only fueled the outrage. That Thursday, I received an invite to an emergency HOA meeting. For the first time ever, they had to move the venue to the local elementary school auditorium because so many residents registered to attend. I showed up on time. When I walked in, the entire room stood and clapped. Not because I was special, but because I was the first to stand up. Raymond stood at the podium, looking paler than usual. He opened with a flat, robotic tone. "We regret the recent misunderstanding." I raised my hand. "Mr. Geller, you removed a tree from private property. No permit. No warning. No consent. What exactly was the misunderstanding?" The room roared with applause and murmurs of "That's right," and "Good question." Raymond tried to explain. "We received complaints that the tree was dropping leaves and blocking sunlight. Dan, your solution was to call in chainsaws without even informing the homeowner?" I cut in. Another voice from the back shouted, "It took me 3 weeks to get approval to plant bougainvillea. He took down a 100-year-old oak in an hour." Raymond stammered. He was drowning in public scrutiny. Then someone else stood up. A man in a gray sweater and city ID badge. "My name is Dean Hargrove, representing the County Urban Forestry Office. The oak tree on Ms. Thompson's property was officially registered in our Environmental Heritage List in 1998. The room went dead silent. Removing that tree without a permit is a direct violation of state conservation laws. We are currently considering legal action against Silver Creek Hills HOA. Raymond went white. Some board members whispered urgently, visibly shaken. I didn't have to say another word. I just looked straight at Raymond. For once, everyone saw him for what he truly was. Not a protector of the community. Just a man with a title and a deeply personal vendetta. The next day, I received another email. The HOA agrees to pay the full $18,400 in requested compensation. We are also open to covering the cost of replanting and would like to host a community tree planting event to demonstrate goodwill. Goodwill? No. That was fear talking. They weren't afraid of me. They were afraid everyone else now saw them. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I posted on the neighborhood forum. This isn't just about a tree. It's about control, entitlement, and the power of one resident refusing to be stepped on. The new tree was planted on a quiet Saturday morning. No power tools. No shouting. No threats. Just the morning sun, a few kind-hearted neighbors, and a silence so profound it felt sacred. The replacement was a native oak sapling, carefully selected from a heritage nursery. It stood about 12 feet tall, its young leaves already rich and green, as if promising, "I will grow. I will last." I stood with dirt on my gloves, watching Noah tie a green ribbon around the trunk. "What's this one's name, Mom?" You tell me." He paused, thinking. "Let's call it Phoenix. Because it rose from the ashes." I smiled. My 8-year-old understood more than most adults. Pushpin 1. The HOA goodwill damage control in disguise. After the newspaper expose, the HOA shifted into full PR mode. They issued a letter of apology. Polished words like understanding, lessons learned, and a commitment to unity. They sent the $18,400 check, along with an invitation. "We'd be honored if Ms. Thompson would speak at the next HOA meeting as a symbol of community restoration." Restoration? They didn't understand. I didn't need an invitation. I was going to speak whether they liked it or not. The meeting was packed. This time I didn't sit quietly. I walked up to the podium holding 3 things. A copy of the HOA's own bylaws. The state certification declaring my oak a protected heritage tree. An old email from Raymond where he coldly stated, "The tree isn't significant enough to retain." I took a breath. I'm not here to demand anything more. I got the check. I planted the tree. I'm here to ask all of you, how long are we going to let our HOA operate like a private club instead of a community service? Silence. My tree wasn't the first thing they destroyed. And if we don't change something, it won't be the last. We need transparency. We need accountability. And above all, we need leaders who serve, not rule. Then I dropped the final line. Per Article 6.1 of HOA bylaws, I am filing a motion to formally remove Raymond Geller from the role of HOA president. The room exploded with applause. Raymond stood, his hands trembling slightly. "This is all a misunderstanding. We shouldn't let emotions cloud governance." But before he could finish, Sylvia Morgan, a longtime board member, grabbed the mic. "Raymond, I supported your leadership for years. But this? This is indefensible." Lisa's tree was just the final straw. Then another board member stood. And another. 3 board members in total said they'd resign unless Raymond stepped down. And for the first time since he took office, Raymond Geller had no response. Over the next 2 weeks, the neighborhood changed faster than I'd ever imagined. Raymond resigned. Clara, the once dismissed nosy senior, was appointed interim president. An independent audit committee was formed to review HOA actions from the past 5 years. And more importantly, a new policy was passed. No changes to private property, be it plant, post, or patio, can be made without written, signed, and documented homeowner approval. No more whisper decisions. No more surprise chainsaws. I didn't ask for praise. I didn't seek a spotlight. I just watered Phoenix each morning. Ran my fingers along its bark. Whispered, "You're just the beginning." Noah brought his friends over again, playing under Phoenix's shade. They called it the Justice Tree. Parents who once stayed silent now waved when they passed me. Some even stopped to help repaint the fence or plant wildflowers by the lake. One elderly woman who'd ignored me for years paused as I cleaned my front porch. "Thank you, Lisa. Because of you, we remember how to speak up." I smiled. I never wanted to be a hero. I just wanted to protect what mattered. But if that helped the whole community find its voice, then Phoenix wasn't just a tree. It was a new beginning. If you thought everything ended when the new tree was planted and Raymond stepped down, you'd be wrong. The fallen tree was only the tip of a much darker iceberg. Beneath it was money. A lot of money. And Raymond's silence after resigning? That wasn't remorse. That was fear. After Clara took over as interim president, she asked me to join the new Community Financial Oversight Committee. Not because I was a finance expert. Because I was the only one willing to ask uncomfortable questions and not shut up. So, I started combing through 5 years' worth of HOA financial reports. And right away, things didn't add up. A $15,000 playground improvement project from last year, but the only thing new was a coat of paint on the old fence. Quarterly lakefront beautification expenses at nearly $9,000, yet the lake was still full of algae and trash. A vague $12,700 charge labeled HOA office renovation, with no attached receipts. I called Clara. Do you think Raymond used HOA funds to renovate his house? She didn't answer right away. Then she sighed. Belisa, I've suspected that for a while. The most damning evidence came from someone I never expected. Lorraine Geller, Raymond's ex-wife. One Tuesday evening, I found a plain manila envelope left on my doorstep. No note. No return address. Inside, a photocopy of a HOA credit card statement. Geller Design and Renovation, $8,750. Description: custom kitchen cabinets, interior paint, hardwood installation. The service address? Raymond's house. Not the HOA office. Not the community center. His damn house. I remembered seeing that kitchen sleek, modern, showroom-worthy when Lorraine posted a Christmas cookie baking video last year. A week later, she sent an anonymous text from a burner number. He also used HOA funds to pay a tree removal company owned by his cousin. That oak was just a pretext. He made it look like it was a landscaping charge. But it was embezzlement. At the next HOA meeting, I stood again, this time with a folder full of evidence. I laid out everything. The fake invoices. The HOA card statements. The matching addresses. The footage of the tree removal company truck, registered to Geller Landscaping, owned by Raymond's cousin, Darren. Clara sat still. Other board members were visibly shaken. I asked the room. Each household here pays $1,800 a year in dues. That money was supposed to go to our community. Instead, it paid for new hardwood floors and Italian leather chairs in Raymond's kitchen. You could feel the temperature drop. Even the HOA's attorney, who'd been stone-faced the whole meeting, cleared his throat and said, "We are reviewing these findings seriously. There appears to be strong evidence of financial misconduct." 2 days later, Raymond received an official summons from the county attorney's office. An emergency vote was called. The HOA would undergo a full forensic audit. Geller Landscaping had its business license suspended within the week. And Raymond? Froze his social media accounts. Removed the HOA president title from his LinkedIn. And vanished from the community like a shadow fleeing daylight. But that wasn't the end. One afternoon, while I was watering Phoenix, a sleek black car pulled up to my curb. Raymond stepped out. No polo. No fake smile. Just a pale, tired man who looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Belisa." He paused. Couldn't look me in the eye. I don't expect forgiveness. I screwed up. I stayed silent. That tree. I didn't realize it meant that much. But I get it now. It woke something up in you, and you destroyed everything I built. I didn't respond with words. Just stared at him. And maybe that hurt more than anything I could have said? Raymond turned, got back in the car, and left. 6 months later, Raymond was court-ordered to pay $42,000 in restitution to the HOA. He was barred from holding any community leadership position for 10 years. His house, the symbol of his status, went up for sale, labeled "Interior may require work." Meanwhile, I was asked to join the HOA Charter Reform Committee. Not because I was some savior, but because I'd proven something powerful. When you protect what's right, you don't just defend yourself. You revive the soul of a community. And under the shade of Phoenix, where Noah and his friends now built a brand new treehouse, I smiled. Because from one fallen tree, we had planted something that would outlive them all.